Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Yes, friends. Oh yeah. Welcome to Tiger Claw Radio. I'm your host, Critical Failure. This week, we're going to talk about The Witcher just a little bit, which I've revisited for the first time since 2016. In addition to that, we got I'm reopening the box of games that we picked up back at Tigerfest this past January. It's been a couple weeks since I looked at that, and we've got our top 40 chiptunes. And those are the top 40 chiptunes from 8-Bit Collective, top 40 out of 8,000 plus. And we've been working through it one track at a time. And let's see how much we've got left here. The next track is track number 14, and it's called Night Story from SYLCMYK. I'm not going to try and pronounce that. I don't even know if you're supposed to. But let's take a listen. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. That is a quality track, and I gotta say that does not play like a chiptune. That's an all gear track if I've ever heard one. Very much enjoyed it, and I miss being able to go to the 8-Bit Collective and just cruise and listen to the new submissions. I know you can still do that on 8 Battle of Bits, but it's not the same because there's a sense of competition that we didn't have in the 8BC days. But yeah, heck of a track, and again, big thanks to Hemrock for putting that list together. I started playing through The Witcher for, I think this is the second time I've really given that game a shot. Last time I played it was 2016. So this is a game that's been in my library/backlog for a long time. And I should note that the last time I played it, I didn't get very far in. All right, we're talking about a game that takes about 50 hours, give or take, to complete, and I put like maybe 1 or 2 hours into it, to the point where I remember almost nothing. So started playing The Witcher, and I should preface this. Over the past few weeks, I've brought up Dead Island a bunch. Not a very popular game, but one I've been enjoying, right? It's a spooky game. It's got the zombies. It's not hard at all. There's virtually no penalty for death. Has a little bit of multiplayer functionality, but I didn't use that much. It became a comfort game over, the weeks, to the point where I played through that game twice in the last, month or two. And also separately played through the sequel, Dead Island Riptide. That's a lot. And I was talking to Swingle, Alex Swingle, and who within our group is known for being the straight shooter / a little bit of a harsh one. And he made the comment, "Hope you're enjoying your single player MMO." And at the time, I shrugged it off. But I was thinking about that a couple nights ago, and I was like, "Wait a second, maybe that's what I like." So I was thinking about my Steam library and what games do I have that feel like single player MMOs. Fallout notwithstanding, because I just recently played all the way through Fallout 3, and I'm looking around a bit before I move on to Fallout 4. And The Witcher came to mind. I remember Zero Punctuation. You guys remember that show? Ben Yahtzee Crawshaw, who talks really fast and doesn't like Americans or whatever. He didn't care much for the Witcher games, at least the first two. I stopped watching before the third one came out. But his complaint was they felt a lot like MMOs, where it's just you. A lot of fetch questing, a lot of kill X amount of monsters, whatever. And I was like, okay, well, let's give it a try. So I played The Witcher long enough to really get past the prologue, which I don't think I did before, to the point where I'm like, killing the glowing doggies and running the fetch quests and stuff. So far, I gotta say I enjoy it. I enjoy it enough that I'm gonna play it a couple more times. It's a long game, right? I'm not saying I'm gonna play it all the way through, but rediscovering The Witcher, and that's CD Projekt Red became a beloved company for a long time because of that game. So, I don't know, I guess my expectations are high, and so far it seems to be living up. It's a very inexpensive game. I think it goes for $10 regular price, but very, very often, whenever there's a sale, The Witcher goes down to $1, at least the first one. And there were several instances where GOG, GOG.com, because it's owned by the company that made The Witcher, gave away that game for free for a limited period of time. So, not a difficult game to acquire if you have any interest. So yeah, that's The Witcher. Not just that I'm playing that game, but the discovery that I might like single-player games that are supposed to feel like MMOs, as ridiculous as that sounds. Because I think Swingle dropped it as kind of like a jab, like a friendly rib. But I was like, wait, maybe he's right. And we'll call it a weekend of self-discovery, I guess. Let's talk about the box of games. I'm talking about the large box of games that I got from Tigerfest, which was this past January, and I've been working through it a week at a time. But the last game that I got, I picked out. It's been a couple of weeks since I picked it out, and I still have not had the chance to play it. We're talking about Extreme Legends Samurai Warriors for the PS2, which I bought disc only for $8.95. And so the only thing that's stopping me from playing it is that my office has been really cluttered, for one thing. So the PS2 kind of got buried. So I haven't played it yet, but yesterday I spent quite a bit of time getting everything picked up. And not just picked up, but I also installed an old, like a component cable switch box or a composite cable switch box. So now I have my original Xbox and my PS1 hooked up at the same time, which is great because the other half of the games in that box are all original Xbox games. So I'm not going to try and play this today and then talk about it, in 10 minutes or whatever, because I'm afraid that that's going to hold the podcast from coming out, and it's not enough time to really give the game a try anyway. But as soon as I'm done recording, I will play this and we'll talk about it next week. I got really into Koei at the time, and I got a lot of these Dynasty Warriors type games that sort of feel a lot alike, and I'm still enjoying them, but I just haven't got to this one. So, maybe I think this week I'll finally do a video where we pop open the box on YouTube and just take a look, see what's in it, so you can get a good idea of what we're working through. But that's the thing. Extreme Legends Samurai Warriors for the PS2. If you have a copy, fire it up. Let's play along. Did you know that I ran a record label called Community Modular and Electronic, or CME for short? We released a chiptune compilation a couple weeks back, and I started work on an acid techno comp. I've done a couple of those in the past. And this is something I expected to take like a long time. So I went over to Reddit and I was like, hey gang, I'm making another compilation. I've done 2 of these acid techno comps in the past. Here they are. Let me know if anybody wants a track. And I've done this for several different types of music. And when it comes to acid house, acid techno, they never cease to amaze me how like open and friendly that community is. Way more so than the chiptune community, which sucks so bad. I wish chiptunes were more like these guys, but I had people like within the hour of those posts going up being like, hey man, yeah, I got some tracks. How do you feel about, tracks that are pre-existing? Is this okay? Is that okay? So that's really awesome, because I love talking to people who make music. The music I make is, not great. I mean, it's okay. I've done some tracks I'm proud of, particularly in my Famitracker chiptune days, but, I wouldn't consider myself a great artist by any stretch of the imagination. But putting these little compilations together, it gives me the chance to shake people's hands, talk about music, and meet people who make it, and then the end result is something gets released for free that ends up being, really high quality. So, yeah, that's CME. If you make music, and you have any interest in talking to people about it or being involved, let me know, because one of the principles I founded it on was to find hobbyists who just make a little, noodle around a little bit and then try and make something from that. So that's a thing that I'm bringing back to life now that I'm actually quite proud of. It's a little bit early in the show. I usually like to do this around the 20-minute mark, but let's thank the sponsors. It's a Patreon-sponsored program. I'm not getting any money from YouTube at this point. It's just these individuals who consciously give of their resources to make sure TCR comes back every week. And to them, I offer, as an old tradition here on TCR, I read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen. So they are Hemrock, they are EmeraldRangers.com, which I urge you guys to check out that website. They are Tecmo Balls, and they are Darabka. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for keeping the ship afloat, and I hope you're enjoying the party. Not a whole lot going on over on Steam. I was checking this out before I went on the air, looking to see if there was anything like really new worth talking about. And we've got Street Fighter 6, which I feel like should be more of a big deal than it actually is. But nobody in my circle, I think, with the exception of Demez, has picked the game up or even like added it to their favorites list. So those of you who have seen this game drop, do you have any thoughts? Like, is there any passing interest at all? I mean, I'm looking at it and it technically, like from a technology standpoint, it doesn't look that far away from Street Fighter V. It looks like a stylistic change and like the addition of like MMO style tools that we didn't have previously. And I don't know, man. It's not that it doesn't appeal to me, because it does kind of look good, but I blew so much money on Street Fighter V. And I know this is going to be half this cost, by this time next year. So I'm going to let it go for now, unless I think anybody in my group expresses interest. But alongside of that, they're doing a 40th anniversary sale for Capcom, and that's pretty cool. That's got some stuff in it. right away I can see the Resident Evil games that I loved so much on Steam. If you don't have them already, now's a great time to get it. People really give Resident Evil 5 a lot of crap, but I loved that game, and it's $5. So you could do a lot worse with $5 than Resident Evil 5. Let's see, something I don't have. I'm seeing the Capcom Arcade Stadium packs appear on the list as well. So it looks like that appears to include the individual game prices dropping, and that's pretty cool. All of the games on both Capcom Arcade 1 and 2 are all 99 cents a piece. And that was, I think, what killed those during their launches, because neither one of them had the games for sale individually. You had to buy a big pack. And the way these arcade games collections were, at least in my opinion, you were looking at a great big pack of games for a great big block of cash with maybe 3 that you would actually play. And maybe that's not fair. But that was the way I saw it. But now that that's in the past and they've broken it down, I might actually pick up a couple of these, particularly the shmups. Yeah, 1943 and 44. What else have we got here? A lot of like Street Fighter games that I already have in another collection. It looks like I bought some that I forgot about. I don't remember buying Commando, but I have it in the arcade for the Capcom Arcade. I got to reinstall that and give that a try. That was fun. I wanted to make a video for a long time. This is something that's been on my production list of using a $200 fight stick, arcade stick, on very cheap Steam games. You know, in case you're new to the program, during my Street Fighter V phase, I used to go to MagFest every year prior to COVID, and one year I bought a Kanba Obsidian fight stick, which is $200. And I bought it in person, so I didn't have to pay for shipping, and it was still $200. And I think I've used this like maybe 4 times. So I fired it up a couple days ago, and I installed like a handful of cheaper Steam games. Guilty Gear X2 Reloaded commonly goes for 99 cents. Jamestown, Raiden Legacy, Double Dragon Trilogy, River City Melee Mach, and Atari Volt, although I guess they removed that from the market. And just going through those 6 games to make sure that they all worked, I had a blast with it, and the video never got made. So that's something I would like to do in the coming weeks. And I look at the arcade stick. I don't know if I can really classify that as buyer's remorse, because I'm still glad I have it. It's still an awesome stick. It just doesn't get used enough. You know? I don't know. Whatever. Do you guys have any hardware like that? Something you bought that maybe costs a pretty penny and just doesn't get used enough? Because I know that happens a lot with individual games. That's like a hallmark of being an adult gamer, is buying games for good money, and then they just sit on the shelf, you know? Perfect example of that. I think the best example of that for me would be Star Ocean 2 for the PS1. Several years back when I was doing like physical acquisitions, I would write a little list and hold it up on YouTube and be like, this is what I'm after. That prompted me to finally get Star Ocean 2, which I think I paid $20 for, and that was pre-COVID, so I don't know what it costs now. And I sat down with that absolutely one time, and that was it. And I remembered, oh yeah, save spots. And I wanted to stop playing, and I had to play for an additional 45 minutes so that I could get to the next save spot. And that was the end. That was the end of me playing that game. All right, I got to see what Star Ocean 2 goes for now. Star Ocean 2 PS1. We're going to see this is going to be an inflated figure because I'm just looking it up randomly on eBay. It looks like 40, just above $40 is the going rate. Blue Book price is $50, and if you stock it, it looks like you can get it a little cheaper than that. Considering how many years 's it's been, plus the pandemic, I honestly thought it would be more. And I never did get a hold. I don't think I ever got a hold of the Japanese version. I acquired like a bunch of Japanese PS1 RPGs just because of the language barrier. They're super cheap. But I don't think I ever got that one. Man, the Japanese did a great job with their box art, like unilaterally across the board. But I digress. All right, here you go. Here's another thing for you. Over on YouTube, there's YouTube has its community tab within each channel, and I've been using that a little bit because I know the algorithm eats it up. Those are those polls that you see showing up in your feed when you're watching YouTube and you're on your phone and whatnot. So I made a few polls over the last year or so. I don't do it very often, but I made a few. So I thought we'd take a look at some of the stuff that people said in response. Let's see. Do you still actively seek out and acquire cartridge-based games? Between yes, no, and not at the moment, but I still used to. It was a split right down the middle between 16 people. How do you play your DOS games? Between DOS box, a virtual PC, and actual vintage hardware. 60% said DOS box. I expected it to win, but I thought it would be. I didn't think it would be. I thought it would be like all DOS box, which kind of surprised me. Oh, that's my wife. She says she has a smoothie for me, so I'm going to pause this recording and go get that. It's time to go to Flavor Town. I have acquired a smoothie. All right. Where were we? Yes, YouTube polls. Favorite classic RPG Maker version, 2000, 2003, or XP, or for the PS1. Everybody likes RPG Maker 2003. I'm involved in a chain game right now of RPG Maker 2003. And maybe it's because it's the one I think I have the least practical experience with, but I don't know, I'm having a hard time with it. I know people like to have in the battle modes, like when you do a random battle, people like to see their characters. But when it comes to RPG Maker, it definitely adds an extra step to development. But, I don't know. It's just me. Have you ever created and released a game for free or otherwise? 75% of the people said no. 25% said yes. Okay, Final Fantasy 2, Japanese 2, not US 2. It's good, it's not good. 60% liked it. It won that one, but it was close. What did you think of the NES Zapper? 81% of the voters liked it. What's wrong with the NES Zapper? I'm surprised that 19% didn't care for it. What are you gonna do? And these two were both from this past week. The most recent one was, do you play games on a CRT? 52% said no, but it was close. I play games off of a CRT, but not exclusively. So I would qualify as yes, but I don't vote on my own polls. Just to be clear, it was not do you play them exclusively. It's just do you have a CRT that you use occasionally or whatever. And I think the one I got the most responses for ever was, what's the best console to get an EverDrive for? And this one had 5 choices: NES, SNES, Sega Genesis, Master System, and 64. And this was prompted by Too Many Handhelds, which recently sent me an actual Genesis EverDrive. It's an older model. He upgraded and offered me his for free, which is super awesome. And 52%, like an overwhelming majority, said SNES. 32% went to Sega Genesis at second place. And there was some discussion in the comments on why Genesis was the best. Pooks the Possum left a comment, definitely the Genesis, especially since now they added Sega CD support without requiring the attachment. Plus they have 32X supported, but requires the 32X attachment. The complete tower of power with everything on a single cartridge. Oh, and it does NES and Master System as well. And I did not know that. That is dope. And it makes more sense to me after reading that why too many handhelds upgraded because, yeah, I get it. That's a big deal. I've never owned a Sega CD. I remember when I used to record with like Jerry Terrifying and G&DB and all those guys, I remember them telling me, oh, they're like $20. $40, but if you scout them hard, you get one for $20. And I put it off, and now they're all breaking. So there's and it's 10 years later, so they're how expensive? How expensive is Sega CD now? I honestly don't want to look it up. I'm afraid it'll make me depressed. So I've never owned one, but NG owned one. So I got to play an actual Sega CD like when they were, relatively new, which was pretty cool. So there was a back and forth in support of Genesis. One guy says Jin Yang says the SNES EverDrive has a large list of incompatible games, like the Super FX games. Star Fox, for example, doesn't work. Big win for Genesis. It does virtual racing on the SVP chip, which is crazy. Virtual racing, if you're not a Genesis person, long touted as the one game you could not play in emulation for Sega Genesis was virtual racing, because it was an expanded cartridge that used some kind of chip that they just couldn't do or what have you, something to do. I don't know the specifics, but it has to do with the expansion that they used. And apparently, there you go. It'll work on the EverDrive, so that's pretty amazing. And that was really cool to hear that back and forth on my wee little Tiger Claw TV poll / comments or whatever. So big thanks to everybody who participated. And that said, let's shift gears over to the fail bag. Now, last week's episode didn't get a bunch of comments, but there were a couple. And let's see if I can bring it up. Hang on a second. Now that I'm like really active on YouTube, I can't just go to the comment section. I have to actually like zero in on that particular video to make sure that that's what I'm looking at. So hang on here. Okay, so I think I just talked for like a good bit, and for whatever reason, it just didn't record. That sucks. That is really unfortunate. But all right, here we go. Desm 101 writes, I really love Final Fantasy 4, but I was not very much into traditional RPGs like Ultima. So it was a nice fit for someone like me who didn't mind the scripted story events. It's cliche and a bit contrived, but the art and music always win me over. Hammerlock makes a lot of good points and gives fair critique, so I agree with him in some regards. Yeah, here's a question for you, Desm. Did you play it when you were young? Because I remember that game being around when I was young. We had the American Final Fantasy 2, like you mentioned. But I don't remember playing it. I remember my older brothers would sing its praises, but that really makes a difference if you played it back then. It's one of the reasons why I find it hard to get into Final Fantasy 2, like Japanese Final Fantasy 2, because I don't have any connection to it. So it makes it more difficult for me to forgive some of like the product of the time type issues. But yeah, Hamrock's list is right on point so far. Even the worst games on the list are really good games. So yeah, good to hear from you, man. Death Adder checks in, and by the way, I love it that Death Adder is writing into the show. It's such an awesome thing. Old school YouTube legends are the best. Luke Morse 1 is still around. I've rewatched his grocery shopping in Japan videos several times over the years, and I find that his videos talking about and exploring Japan are more entertaining than him talking about old arcade circuit boards. Do you still watch Bithead 1000? In case you don't, his 2-hour-a-week comedy routine is still top-notch. I keep expecting to get burned out on him, but it seems impossible. Any word from Vintage Video Game Geek? I used to hear him. Anytime I used to hear him talk, my inner monologue would sound just like him for a while. Every inner thought I had took about 5 minutes to sound out. It was awesome. Oh man, Luke Morris 1. I haven't watched that guy in a long time. I'll have to look him back up again and see what he's doing these days. Last time I saw Luke Morse 1, he had a capacitor explode on a Street Fighter Alpha 3 board, and he was trying to desolder a surface mount integrated circuits to try and save this board. That's pretty cool, I guess. Bithead 1000 is... I took a break from him because... Okay, so I was watching Bithead 1000 every single time he put out a video, and it was like the kind of thing where I was so into it, it would leak into conversations. He would get mentioned here on the air a lot and stuff like that. And I think the thing that got me to stop was I had to take a break from him because his Patreon took off, and when that happened, he was like just trying to be the biggest bro he could be, and so his production like ramped way, way up. So it became more than I could keep up with. Like I remember, this was back when I was still working at the office. I would open up Bithead 1000, throw on my earphones, and minimize it. I wouldn't even see, the picture, but just listening to him do his routine. He's one of those guys where the way he talks, maybe it was just because I watched him so much, I could see the hand movements just by by listening to his voice. I could see it in my head. He's very, had a lot of inflection the way, in his voice. And I still think that's true. These days, I have revisited his channel. I check him out every once in a while, but his videos are really long, so I usually watch only about half. But to your point, Bithead 1000 is still firing as just as high quality as he used to, in 2009. And he's been around so long. Oh my gosh. In my head, I kind of consider Bithead 1000 like the last YouTuber of an era, He's still doing it the way we did it for the most part, back in 2010. And the last thing you mentioned was Vintage Video Game Geek. And this is the part that sucks, because I did a whole recap on who he was, and it was all none of it got recorded. So let's do it real briefly. So Vintage Video Game Geek has been gone so long. There's people in this circle, I think, who don't know who he is. He was the guy who started YouTube right around the same time as me, and he was going through his video game collection in chronological order. So back in 2010, I knew him as the pre-NES guy because he started by doing reviews for ColecoVision games and Atari games. And that changed over time, but he was the guy I credit with making me want a ColecoVision, even though I never did get one. Berserk for the 2600 is a game I discovered because of him. And he got a big boost when James Rolfe favorited one of his videos. And so for a very short period of time, his video appeared on the front page of the Angry Video Game Nerd, at the height of his popularity. So Vintage Video Game Geek took that little boost, and then he started producing regularly. Now, back in 2010, if you produced one video a week, then your channel was on fire, and you were like a hot channel. Far cry from today, because there were fewer devices you could watch videos on, and it took longer to produce something. To put it in a frame of reference, I used to film my YouTube videos on a camera. Not a video camera, but an actual snapping pictures type camera that just happened to have a video feature on it. It would do 240p videos, and that was really good for the time. Some of my early videos are shot like that because that's what you had to do. You had to have you could do it, but the tool chain that you needed to make a YouTube video was a lot bigger than it is today. So yeah, so there you go. And eventually he disappeared and all his videos came down. Well, during the pandemic, I got to play Fortnite with him, and I caught up with him, and I talked to him about where he went. And I got the okay to tell this story. So what happened was he ran for public office. And it had to do with the school system, why he did it. But he wanted to, just doing... being an American in the biggest way possible, participating in the political environment. he had, political opponents at that point. So they found his YouTube channel and they started harassing him, the people who were opposed to whatever it is he wanted to make happen. And he had to pull his stuff down, So the mistake he made was he deleted everything as opposed to switching it over to private. So it is what it is. Today, he's gone through re-uploading just about everything on another site that isn't YouTube. It's called Rumble. And so you can still watch the old Vintage Video Game Geek videos, but they're not on YouTube anymore. And another thing that he mentioned to me was he didn't have any interest in coming back. So to him, I get the impression that his YouTube channel and stuff, he really thrived in the era of one video a week. He made these like videos where he talked about something and then did like a slideshow or whatever. And then after that, he had a podcast that was pretty successful with NES Complex, and I think that's where his career ends. He just plays video games and tries to take care of his life and whatnot. He's not coming back. So it's sad because I like the guy. I got to hang out with him in person a couple of times. In 2014, we had a big meetup at MagFest where I met him, Arcade Impossible, Gamester 81, and a couple others. And then also prior to that, he lived in Virginia for a little while. I live in Maryland, so we were close to each other. We met like in the middle and went to a flea market. That happened one time. We went to this flea market. It was me and Vintage Video Game Geek and my oldest son, who at the time was like 2 or 3. And we went to the flea market, and what I remember the most about it was buying a flight stick, a USB flight stick for $2 that I used to use to play like X3 on Steam. And that was really cool. But yeah, so look him up if you ever want to watch his old stuff again, because he was a good guy. I thought I'd keep it short this week because it's a bit of a slow news week for me. And also, it's only been a couple of days since the last time I recorded. So whatever it is that you're dealing with in your life, I really hope it goes well for you. And I truly mean that. I do. I'm rooting for you. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you next week.